I'm going to be honest with you about something. Most of the videos on this channel, I research them, I write them, and I move on. But this one was different. This one I could not stop thinking about. There are some animals in this video that, after I finished researching them, I had to close my laptop and just sit there for a minute. Because what I was reading about did not match what I thought I knew about biology. I want to explain what I mean. There are rules in nature. There are textbook rules about how animals are supposed to work. A predator needs a brain. A fish needs to be streamlined to swim. A skeleton is required to move. Speed costs you something. Armor costs you something else. Every trait an animal has, it has to pay for somehow. That is how this is supposed to work. That is what they teach you in school. The 15 animals in this video did not get the memo. You are about to meet a fish that survives by being too ugly to recognize. A predator with no brain that still kills in under 2 minutes. An animal that has no skeleton and paws itself through holes. A fish that decided not to be a fish at all and just impersonates kelp instead. A creature that eats stone for a living. A whale that voluntarily abandons the only air it can breathe and dives into pressure that should kill it. And finally, the biggest animal that has ever lived on this planet, surviving entirely on shrimp the size of your fingernail. Every one of these animals is, by the standard rules of biology, a glitch, something that should not work. Something that, in any reasonable engineering document, would be flagged as a mistake. But they all work. They have all been working for millions of years. And the more I dug into them, the more one question kept circling back in my head. What if the rules are wrong? That is what this whole video is about. Before we begin, if this kind of video is what you came here for, hit subscribe. It takes 1 second. It costs you nothing. And it tells me to keep making them because honestly, this is my favorite work to do. When you finish, tell me in the comments which of these 15 animals surprised you the most. I read every single one, the disagreements especially. Those are my favorites. Dim the lights if you can. Get comfortable. The ocean is about to get strange. Let me show you. Let me start this video with an animal that, on paper, has no business being alive. I want you to imagine, for a second, that you are an engineer. A biological engineer. Someone has given you the job of designing a small fish that needs to survive in one of the most hostile neighborhoods on Earth. A coral reef. The place is crawling with predators. Fast ones, smart ones, ones with venom, ones with ambush systems, ones that strike in milliseconds. Your fish has to live here. Your fish has to eat, breed, and reach old age in this neighborhood. So what do you give it? The obvious answer is speed. You give it a streamlined body, a powerful tail, fast twitch muscles, a crescent-shaped caudal fin built for explosive acceleration. You make it the kind of fish that can outrun anything that tries to eat it. That is the engineering textbook answer. That is what makes sense. Now I want you to look at the pufferfish. The pufferfish is not built for any of that. The pufferfish is slow. The pufferfish is round. The pufferfish swims by, gently waving its little side fins like a person paddling a kayak. Its tail is small and weak. Its body is awkward, blocky, the kind of shape that would lose a race against most of the other fish on the reef without even trying. By every conventional measurement of survival engineering, the pufferfish is a mistake. The pufferfish should not be here. The pufferfish should have been eaten out of existence millions of years ago. And yet, the pufferfish is everywhere. Tropical reefs all over the world, surrounded by faster predators, thriving, multiplying, living long lives. How is this possible? How did an animal this bad at being a fish survive in a place where being a fast fish is supposed to be the entire point? The answer is, in my opinion, one of the strangest examples of evolution I have ever read about. The pufferfish did not solve the speed problem by getting faster. The pufferfish solved the speed problem by deciding, somewhere deep in its evolutionary history, to become a terrible meal. That is the entire strategy. That is the whole design philosophy of this animal. Do not be fast. Do not be strong. Do not be hidden. Just be the worst possible thing to eat. Be so unpleasant, so inconvenient, so dangerous, that no predator on the reef will ever want to deal with you. And the pufferfish has built its entire body around delivering on that promise. Let me show you how. The first defense, the famous one, is inflation. When a predator lunges at a pufferfish, the pufferfish does something that, the first time you see it, you do not believe is real. It sucks in water at incredible speed, forces that water into a highly elastic stomach, and in the space of a second or two, the entire fish swells up into a near-perfect sphere, sometimes 3, 4, even 5 times its original size. A fish that was the perfect snack size a moment ago is now a beach ball with eyes. I want you to think about what that does to a predator's brain. The predator has committed to the strike. The predator has opened its mouth at a specific gape, calibrated for a specific size of prey. And now suddenly, the prey has tripled in volume. The bite does not fit anymore. The swallow does not fit anymore. The predator is now trying to deal with something its mouth physically cannot accommodate. In biomechanics, this is called gape limitation. Every predator has one. And the pufferfish, in a single motion, has just put itself on the wrong side of it. But the inflation is not just about size. In many species, the inflation also raises sharp spines that lie flat against the body when the fish is relaxed. When the skin stretches, those spines stand up rigid. Now the predator is not just dealing with something too big to swallow. The predator is dealing with something too big to swallow that is also covered in needles. The interaction goes from quick meal to extended problem in about half a second. And every second the predator spends struggling with this prickly balloon, the predator is exposed. Other predators may come. Injuries may happen. The prey may slip away. The cost of trying to eat a pufferfish suddenly looks much higher than the reward. The pufferfish has not outrun death. The pufferfish has made death too much trouble. Now here is where the story turns from clever to genuinely uncomfortable. Because the inflation, as remarkable as it is not the pufferfish's main defense. The inflation is the warning. The inflation is the visual signal. What is actually in the pufferfish, in its liver, in its ovaries, in some of its muscle tissue, is one of the most powerful neurotoxins known to exist on this planet. It is called tetrodotoxin. And the way it works is, in my opinion, one of the cruelest chemistries in biology. Tetrodotoxin does not tear tissue. It does not cause bleeding. It does not hurt at first. What it does is interfere with the sodium channels in your nerves. The tiny molecular gates that allow your nerves to fire electrical signals to your muscles. The toxin walks up to those gates and locks them shut. And once the gates are shut, your nervous system stops working. Not all at once. Slowly. Piece by piece. A predator that successfully bites and swallows a pufferfish has, depending on the dose, just signed its own death warrant. Within minutes, its muscles begin to fail. Within longer, the muscles that control its breathing stop receiving signals. The animal cannot move. The animal cannot escape. The animal cannot even gasp. It is paralyzed, fully conscious in many cases, while its own body shuts off. There is no antidote. There is no treatment. The toxin is more potent, gram for gram, than cyanide, by a wide margin, and the pufferfish carries it around inside its body for its entire life. Now I want to add the detail that really pushes this animal into the strange category. The pufferfish does not synthesize this toxin itself. In many species, the toxin is produced by bacteria that live inside the fish. The pufferfish is, in a sense, walking around with a microbial weapons manufacturer in its tissues. It is a partnership. The bacteria make the poison. The fish carries it. Together they form one of the most chemically dangerous creatures on the reef. The animal you are looking at is not really one organism. It is a consortium. Tell me, in the comments, when you read something like that, what do you actually make of it? Because I keep thinking about it. An animal that outsources its weapons to microscopic partners living inside its own body. A fish that is, biologically, a community. There is one more reversal I have to show you before we close this chapter. And it is the reversal that, for me, completes the whole picture. The pufferfish, when it is not inflated, when it is just going about its day, is not actually defenseless in other ways. It has a jaw with fused teeth that act almost like a beak. And that beak is strong enough to crack the shells of mollusks, strong enough to bite into sea urchins, which most fish on the reef cannot eat. So the same animal that looks helpless and slow and ridiculous is also a specialized predator with access to food sources that the faster, more elegant fish cannot reach. It is not just surviving by being uneatable. It is thriving in a niche that the more streamlined animals cannot enter. So here is my question for you. After everything I just told you, do you still see the pufferfish as a design failure? Or do you see what I see? An animal whose entire body, from its slow swimming to its inflatable stomach to its sharp spines, to its bacterial weapons to its shell-crushing beak, is a single integrated strategy. A strategy that says, if you cannot win the chase, do not race. Just be the worst possible thing your enemies could ever try to eat. The pufferfish, by every textbook metric, should not work. And yet somehow it works better than almost anything else around it. That is where this video starts. Wait until you see where it goes. I want to play a small game with you. If I described an animal to you piece by piece, just by listing its features, I want to see if you would believe that the animal I was describing was real. The animal has the head of a horse, not a fish, a horse. A small terrestrial herbivore's head, complete with a long snout and tiny ears that are not really ears. The head is fused to the body at a 90-degree angle, so the animal stands upright in the water, vertical, like a person standing on the seafloor. Now add to this body the tail of a monkey, a prehensile tail, a tail that curls around things and grips them like fingers, not a fish tail, a grasping tail. Now wrap the entire body in bony plates, like a tiny armored knight. Now remove the stomach. Yes, remove it. The animal does not have one. Now make it a worse swimmer than almost any other fish in the ocean. Slow, awkward, paddling along with a vibrating little fin on its back. Now tell me, the male of this species gets pregnant. If I had described this to you cold, with no images, with no context, you would have laughed. You would have said, no, this is not a real animal. This is a creature from a children's drawing. This is what happens when a 5-year-old is asked to design a sea creature and just glues together a bunch of body parts from different animals and calls it done. But the animal is real. The animal exists. The animal is everywhere in coastal waters all over the world. The animal is the seahorse. And I am telling you, after researching this video, I am still not sure how the seahorse works. Let me walk you through the glitches one by one, because each one of them, on its own, should disqualify this animal from being a functional fish. Glitch number 1. The seahorse is a bad swimmer. I do not mean a slow swimmer. I mean a genuinely, biologically terrible swimmer. Most fish are streamlined. The seahorse is upright. Most fish have a powerful tail for thrust. The seahorse has a curling, grasping tail that does not produce thrust at all. The seahorse moves forward by vibrating a small dorsal fin on its back at high speed. The result is a kind of trembling drift through the water that, by every standard of marine locomotion, looks like the worst possible way to get around an ocean full of predators. In an environment where speed equals survival, the seahorse decided to be slow, on purpose. And somehow this has worked for it across millions of years. Glitch number 2. The seahorse has no stomach. I want you to stop for a second and consider what that means. Almost every vertebrate on this planet has a stomach. The stomach is, evolutionarily, one of the most successful organs ever invented. It lets you eat a big meal, store it, and digest it slowly while you go about your day. The stomach is the reason most predators can hunt occasionally and rest in between. The seahorse does not have one. Food goes through its digestive tract almost as fast as it eats it, which means the seahorse cannot do what almost every other predator does. It cannot eat a big meal and rest. It has to eat constantly, all day. A small crustacean here, a small copepod there, a near continuous trickle of micromeals just to keep its metabolism running. The seahorse is, in a sense, a fish that has to graze like a cow. Except the cow at least has multiple stomachs. The seahorse has none. Tell me in the comments, When you read something like that, what do you actually make of it? Because to me, this looks like a design flaw. This looks like someone forgot to include a major component. And yet, somehow, the seahorse is fine. The seahorse has been doing this for millions of years. Glitch number 3, the strike. Now this one is the part that, when I read it, made me reread it 3 times to make sure I had it right. Because the seahorse, this slow, stomachless, awkward animal that you would never pick out of a lineup as a predator, has one of the fastest strike mechanisms in the entire ocean. The head of the seahorse is built like a spring-loaded trap. There are specialized muscles and tendons in the neck region that store elastic energy, like a crossbow that has been slowly drawn back. The seahorse can hold this tension for as long as it needs to, anchored to a piece of seagrass by its prehensile tail, scanning the water with eyes that move independently of each other. When a small crustacean drifts into range, the tension releases. The head snaps forward in a fraction of 1/1000th of a second. The snout opens. A suction pulse pulls the prey inward. The whole thing is over before the prey has any chance to react. We are talking about strike speeds that rival the fastest predators in the ocean. From an animal that, in literally every other measurable way, is too slow to be alive on a coral reef. How does this make sense? How does the same animal that cannot outswim a turtle have a feeding mechanism that operates faster than the nervous system of its prey can register? The answer is that the seahorse does not rely on muscle contraction speed alone. It uses stored mechanical tension. It is, mechanically, more like a mousetrap than a muscle. The slow, gentle creature is sitting in the grass with a crossbow cocked under its chin, and every so often it fires. I cannot get over this. The seahorse is a paradox in motion, or a paradox in stillness, I suppose. Glitch number 4, and this is the one that, in my opinion, completely breaks the standard rules of vertebrate biology. The males get pregnant. I'm not using that phrase metaphorically. I'm not saying it for clicks. The male seahorse has a brood pouch on his belly. During mating, the female deposits her eggs into this pouch. The male fertilizes them, and then for the next several weeks, the male carries the embryos inside his body. He regulates the salinity inside the pouch. He oxygenates the developing young. He provides them with nutrients through a network of blood vessels that, structurally, looks remarkably similar to placental tissue. The male undergoes hormonal changes during the pregnancy. His immune system adjusts. The pouch behaves in many ways like a functioning uterus. And when the embryos are ready, the male goes into labor. His body contracts. He pushes the fully formed miniature seahorses out into the water in a series of convulsions that look, on high-speed video, almost exactly like vertebrate childbirth. This is the only true male pregnancy in the vertebrate world. The only one. There is no other animal with a backbone that does this. The seahorse is, biologically, the single exception. The glitch in the code that, somehow, became permanent. Now let me put all of these glitches together, because individually, each one is strange. But together, they form one of the most baffling animals I have ever researched. You have an animal that cannot swim well, that has no stomach, that has to eat constantly, that stands upright in a horizontal ocean, that has a tail built for gripping instead of propulsion, that carries a spring-loaded weapon in its skull, that looks like nothing else in the sea, and whose males give birth. By every textbook rule of how a fish is supposed to be built, the seahorse should not work. The seahorse is a glitch. The seahorse is what happens when biology somehow makes a series of choices that look wrong on paper, and then those choices, against all expectations, lock into a working system. But here is the part that I think matters the most. The seahorse is not rare. The seahorse is not on the edge of extinction because of its design. The seahorse is everywhere, from tropical reefs to temperate seagrass meadows. There are dozens of species. They have been around for millions of years. They are, in every way that matters, successful. So tell me, in the comments, when you look at this animal, what do you see? Do you see a series of mistakes that somehow function? Do you see an animal that should not work but does? Or do you see something else? Something I am missing, some logic that I have not yet figured out? Because I look at the seahorse, and I keep landing on the same thought. This animal is not supposed to work, and yet it does. It works perfectly. It has worked perfectly for longer than we have existed as a species. The seahorse is the first glitch on our list. It is not going to be the last. I want you to try something. Stand up, or if you are sitting, just stretch your arm out in front of you. Now think about how that motion happened. Your brain sent a signal down your spine. The signal traveled through specific nerves. It activated specific muscles. Those muscles pulled on specific bones at specific joints, and the bones, acting as levers, moved your arm to the position you wanted. That is how almost every animal with a skeleton works. Bones are the foundation. Muscles pull on bones. Joints define where movement can happen. Without bones, the muscles have nothing to pull against, and movement in any controlled way becomes impossible. That is the engineering rule. Now I want to show you an animal that breaks that rule. Completely. From the ground up. An animal that has no bones at all. None. Not one. And somehow this animal not only moves, but moves with a level of dexterity and control that in some ways exceeds what animals with proper skeletons can do. This is the octopus. And the octopus, by every textbook principle of how a body is supposed to be built, should not work. Let me walk you through why. A typical animal body has a central frame. The bones. The bones are the things that hold everything in place, give the muscles something to pull against, and define the shape of the animal. Take the bones away, and most animals collapse. They become a puddle. They cannot maintain shape. They cannot generate movement against resistance. They cannot do almost any of the things we associate with being a functional animal. The octopus has 0 bones. The only hard structure in its entire body is its beak, which is roughly the size of a small fingernail. Everything else is soft tissue, muscle, nerve, skin. The entire animal, except for that tiny beak, is essentially a bag of muscle with 8 arms attached to it. By the rules of standard biomechanics, this should not be a functional animal. You cannot build precise motion out of muscle alone. The muscles need leverage. The muscles need joints. The muscles need rigid points to push against. Without those, you get a jellyfish. You get something that drifts. You do not get a precision predator capable of opening jars and solving puzzles. So how does the octopus work? The answer is one of the most underrated pieces of biological engineering on this planet. It is called a muscular hydrostat, and it changes everything you thought you knew about how bodies are supposed to function. A muscular hydrostat is a structure where the muscle itself acts as both the actuator and the skeleton at the same time. The muscle fibers are arranged in 3 different directions. Some run lengthwise, some run crosswise, some run at angles. When one set of fibers contracts, the others have to either stretch or hold their shape. Because muscle tissue is essentially incompressible, the volume of the arm stays the same no matter how it deforms. Contract the lengthwise fibers, and the arm shortens but gets thicker. Contract the crosswise fibers, and the arm elongates. Contract some at angles, and the arm twists. By combining these contractions in different patterns, the arm can bend, stretch, stiffen, soften, twist, and grip, all without a single bone in it. The octopus arm, in other words, is its own skeleton. The same tissue that produces the force is the tissue that the force pushes against. It is a self-supporting, self-actuating limb, and it can do things that bones cannot. A bony arm has a fixed number of joints. The octopus arm has effectively unlimited joints. It can bend anywhere along its length. It can form a temporary elbow at any point it wants. It can wrap around an object in a spiral. It can stiffen a portion of itself into a temporary rigid lever while leaving the rest soft. There is no animal with bones that can match this kind of versatility. The octopus, by abandoning the skeleton entirely, gained a range of motion that skeletal animals cannot access. But here is where the glitch deepens. Because controlling this kind of body would, by every reasonable rule of neurology, require a brain so big it could not possibly fit inside the animal. Imagine trying to control 8 arms, each of which has unlimited joints, each of which can move in any direction at any moment. The computational load of that, run through a central brain, would be astronomical. The octopus solves this problem in a way that, in my opinion, is even stranger than the body itself. The octopus does not have one brain. The octopus has 9 brains. There is one central brain between the eyes that handles overall strategy. And then there are 8 peripheral brains, 1 in each arm. Each arm has its own dense cluster of neural tissue, and each cluster can process sensory information and make decisions independently. More than half of the octopus's total neurons live in the arms, not in the central brain. When an octopus reaches into a crevice to explore, the arm does not wait for the brain to tell it what to do. The arm decides for itself. The suckers on the arm taste chemicals in the water. The suckers feel texture. The arm processes that information locally and adjusts its movements in real time. The central brain only gets involved at a high level, setting broad objectives. Hide, hunt, escape. The details are handled by the arms. This is, in computer science terms, parallel processing. The octopus is running 9 processors at once, each one handling its own workload. And this is how the animal manages to control its impossible body. Not by centralizing control, but by distributing it. The body that should not be controllable becomes controllable because the control system is not in one place. It is in 9. Tell me in the comments, when you read something like that, what do you make of it? Because I keep coming back to the same thought. The octopus is not just a different kind of animal. The octopus is a different kind of architecture. It is a different solution to the entire problem of being alive. And there is more. Because the octopus, this impossibly flexible animal, can also do something that no skeletal animal can do. It can squeeze through any hole that is larger than its beak. That is the only rule. As long as the beak fits, the rest of the animal can follow. There is no rib cage to get stuck. There is no skull to wedge. There are no joints that resist compression. The entire body is squeezable, malleable, fluid in a way that no animal with bones could ever be. There is footage from aquariums all over the world of octopuses escaping their tanks by flowing through gaps that look impossibly small, lifting lids, slipping through drains. The animal that should not work has built itself a kind of physics-defying mobility. So let me leave you with this. The octopus has no skeleton. The octopus has 9 brains. The octopus can pour itself through holes the size of a coin. The octopus can change color and texture in milliseconds. The octopus can solve puzzles and use tools. The octopus is, in every measurable way, an animal that broke the rules of how animals are supposed to be built. And it works. It works perfectly. It works better than the rule-following animals around it. The octopus is not a fish that lost its bones. The octopus is what happens when biology decides that bones were never necessary in the first place. This is the second glitch on our list. I will see you in Chapter 4. Evolution, as far as we understand it, runs on a budget. I want you to think of biology like an economy. Every animal that has ever lived on this planet has had to make choices about how to spend the limited resources it has. You can have powerful muscles, but powerful muscles cost calories. You can have heavy armor, but heavy armor slows you down. You can have a big brain, but a big brain consumes oxygen and energy at rates that demand constant feeding. You can have excellent vision, but excellent vision requires a large nervous system to process all that visual data. You cannot have everything. That is the rule. That is, in many ways, the central rule of evolution. There are always trade-offs. There are always costs. The animals you see around you, the fast ones and the strong ones and the well-armored ones, are all the result of compromises. They got the things they got by giving up something else. That is how this is supposed to work. And then there is the mantis shrimp. The mantis shrimp, in my opinion, did not get the memo. The mantis shrimp seems to have looked at the rules of evolutionary trade-offs and just decided not to participate. The mantis shrimp has somehow stacked nearly every advantage you could ask for into a single body. And as far as I can tell, it has not had to give up much of anything in return. Let me walk you through what I mean. The first thing the mantis shrimp has is a weapon. And not just any weapon. The mantis shrimp carries a pair of raptorial appendages folded under its head that, when it decides to strike, accelerates so fast that the surrounding water cannot get out of the way in time. A vapor cavity forms behind the moving club. When that cavity collapses, it generates a shockwave with enough force to shatter shells. There is a flash of light at the moment of collapse, a phenomenon called sonoluminescence, where the interior of the imploding bubble briefly reaches temperatures comparable to the surface of the sun. So the mantis shrimp does not just punch its prey. The mantis shrimp punches its prey and then, in the same instant, hits it again with a shockwave from a collapsing vapor bubble that flashes with light. 2 hits, 1 motion, from an animal smaller than your hand. Now, in any normal evolutionary equation, a weapon that powerful would come at a serious cost. The animal would have to be larger to carry the muscle mass needed to generate that force. Or the animal would have to be slower because the weapon itself would weigh it down. Or the weapon would wear out because hitting things that hard repeatedly would destroy the limb delivering the strike. But the mantis shrimp pays none of those costs. The animal is small, compact, some species smaller than a finger. The animal is fast. It strikes with explosive acceleration. And the club. The club does not wear out, because the club is built from a layered helicoidal microstructure that distributes stress in spirals, redirecting microfractures so they cannot align into a catastrophic break. The same animal that delivers shell-breaking force hundreds of times in its life has somehow evolved a weapon that does not degrade under its own punishment. Aerospace engineers have studied this structure. They have tried to copy it. Our best laboratories cannot fully replicate it. So the first trade-off, the cost of carrying a powerful weapon, the mantis shrimp has somehow eliminated. Now let me tell you about the second thing the mantis shrimp has. Its eyes. In most animals, vision is expensive. A complex visual system requires a complex nervous system to process it, which requires more energy, more brain, more everything. There is a reason most animals on this planet have relatively simple visual systems. Eyes are not free. The mantis shrimp has the most complex visual system that has ever been documented in any animal. Its eyes are mounted on stalks, each one moving independently, and each individual eye has 3 separate focal regions, giving it trinocular vision in each eye alone. The retina contains many distinct types of photoreceptors, far more than humans have. It sees ultraviolet light. It sees polarized light. It sees the wavelengths of light bouncing off scales and shells in ways that no predator on the reef can detect. Tell me in the comments how this is possible. Because by any reasonable evolutionary accounting, this kind of visual system should cost an enormous amount of metabolic and neural resources to support. It should make the animal slow. It should make the animal large. It should drain energy away from other systems. But again, the mantis shrimp pays none of those costs. It is small. It is fast. It has the most sophisticated eyes in the ocean. And somehow this combination just works. There is more. The body itself. The mantis shrimp has armored segments. It has reinforced joints. It can withstand impacts and pressures that would damage other crustaceans. So now you have an animal that has powerful weapons, advanced vision, and tough armor. By the rules of evolutionary trade-offs, this should not be possible. Adding armor to an animal should slow it down. Adding heavy claws should reduce mobility. Adding complex eyes should drain calories that the armor and weapons need. The mantis shrimp ignores all of these. It is fast, armed, armored, and equipped with the best vision in its environment, all in a body that you could hold in your hand. So how does this actually work? How does the mantis shrimp afford all of this without giving something up? The answer, as far as we can tell, lies in the lifestyle. The mantis shrimp does not roam. The mantis shrimp does not travel long distances. The mantis shrimp lives in a burrow, often a small hole in coral rubble, and it stays there. It defends a small territory. It strikes prey that come close to the entrance. It conserves energy by not moving much. The reduced metabolic demand of being a stationary animal, combined with the efficient stored energy mechanism of its strike, allows it to invest its limited resources into the things that matter most. The weapon, the eyes, the armor. In a sense, the mantis shrimp solved the trade-off problem by simply not being a wandering animal. It stays put. It guards a small piece of reef. And within that small piece of reef, it is, without exaggeration, the most overpowered animal in the ocean. But here is what I keep thinking about. Even with the lifestyle adjustment, even accounting for the fact that the mantis shrimp does not travel and does not roam, the sheer combination of features in this animal feels like it should not be possible. The math should not work. You should not be able to combine sun temperature shockwaves and the most complex eyes in the animal kingdom in a body the size of a pen. And yet, here it is, alive, common, in coral reefs across the world, doing exactly what it has always done. There is one more detail that, for me, completes the strangeness of this animal. The mantis shrimp can live for years. Some species reach 20 years of age. So we are not just talking about an animal that can do these things once. We are talking about an animal that strikes with full force, with stored bubble physics, with shell-shattering precision for 2 decades. The weapon does not break. The eyes do not degrade. The armor does not crack. Every system somehow holds up over an entire lifetime of repeated violent use. So tell me, when you look at this animal, what do you see? An evolutionary anomaly? An accident? A glitch in the rules? Or do you see what I see? An animal that somehow found a loophole in the way biology is supposed to work. An animal that figured out how to have it all without paying the usual costs. An animal that should not exist in this form, but does. The mantis shrimp is the third glitch on our list. Wait until you see the next one. I want you to slow down for a moment. The last few chapters have been loud. The pufferfish blowing itself into a balloon. The octopus pouring through holes. The mantis shrimp generating shockwaves with its fists. Big animals doing big things. Glitches that announce themselves. This next animal is the opposite. This next animal is so quiet that you might watch a video of it and not realize it is in the frame. This next animal is the strangest entry on our list so far, in my opinion, because the glitch in this animal is not what it does. The glitch is what it has chosen not to do. I want to introduce you to the leafy sea dragon. If you have not seen one, take a second to picture this. Imagine a long, slender fish, pencil thin, the body wrapped in small, bony segments. So far, fine. So far, this could be a relative of the seahorse, which it is. But then, all along the body of this animal, sprouting from its sides, its back, its head, are dozens of long, flowing, leaf-shaped appendages. They look like kelp blades. They sway in the current. They drift with the water. They are translucent at the edges and tinted in the same yellows and greens and oranges as the algae around them. The animal does not look like a fish. The animal looks like a piece of kelp that someone glued eyes onto. And here is the part that makes me stop every time I think about it. Those leafy appendages do not do anything. They are not fins. They are not for swimming. They are not for sensing. They produce no thrust. They serve no propulsion function. The leafy sea dragon, structurally, did not need to grow them. By every measurement of what a fish is supposed to be, those leaves are pointless ornaments hanging off the body, adding drag, slowing the animal down, contributing zero to its mobility. In any other context, in any other ecosystem, an animal evolving useless body parts would be a textbook example of bad design. The leaves should have been pruned away by evolution thousands of generations ago. They cost energy to grow. They are vulnerable to damage. They make the animal more conspicuous if you look closely. They serve no function, except somehow they serve the only function that matters. Because the leafy sea dragon, by growing these completely useless appendages, has stopped looking like a fish. And in the kelp forests of southern Australia, where this animal lives, looking like a fish is the worst possible thing you can do. The predators in these forests are calibrated neurologically to detect fish shapes. They are looking for streamlined bodies, They are looking for the silhouettes of swimming things. They are looking for the geometry of fins cutting against the flow of water. The leafy sea dragon does not have that silhouette anymore. The leafy sea dragon, by adding ornaments that do nothing functional, has broken its own outline so completely that the predator's brain cannot find it. The predator looks directly at the animal and sees kelp. The predator's pattern recognition system, optimized over millions of years to spot prey, gets confused and moves on. Tell me in the comments, when you read something like this, what do you make of it? Because this is, in my opinion, one of the strangest evolutionary strategies in the entire ocean. Most animals survive by adding capability, faster muscles, sharper teeth, better vision. The leafy sea dragon survived by adding nothing, by growing flourishes that contribute no function except to break its own recognizability. And it works. It works so well that the leafy sea dragon, despite being slow and fragile and almost defenseless, is doing fine in waters full of predators that could destroy it in a single bite. Let me tell you about how it moves, because the movement is the second part of this strange picture. The leafy sea dragon does not swim the way fish swim. There is no powerful tail stroke. There are no dramatic body bends. The animal moves by vibrating a small, almost transparent dorsal fin on its back, combined with even smaller pectoral fins near its head. The motion is so subtle that you can stare at the animal in the water and not be sure if it is moving or just being pushed by the current. The leafy sea dragon has, in effect, given up on swimming as we normally understand it. It drifts. It floats. It allows the water to do most of the work, only making the tiniest adjustments to stay near its preferred kelp. This is not bad swimming. This is intentional bad swimming, because real swimming, the kind of muscle-driven motion that other fish do, would betray the animal. It would create rhythm. It would create the predictable cyclic movement that predators recognize. By moving like a leaf, by drifting like vegetation, the leafy sea dragon avoids ever looking like an animal in motion. The animal has, in a real sense, decided to opt out of being a fish. And there is one more glitch I have to tell you about, because it ties this whole picture together. The reproduction. Like the seahorse from earlier, the leafy sea dragon has male pregnancy. But the leafy sea dragon does it differently. The female does not deposit her eggs into a pouch. Instead, she presses them onto a specialized patch of tissue on the underside of the male's tail. The eggs adhere there externally, fully exposed to the water. And for the next several weeks, the male carries those eggs, oxygenating them by moving through the current, his body still drifting like kelp, his tail now studded with hundreds of tiny embryos. When the babies finally hatch, they emerge as miniature versions of the adults, already covered in tiny leafy appendages, already designed to look like vegetation. There is no juvenile stage where they look like normal fish and then transform. They are born already disguised. Think about what this means. The disguise is not learned. The disguise is not acquired. The disguise is so fundamental to this animal's strategy that it has been written into the genome to the point where the embryos develop with the leaves already forming inside the egg. The babies hatch knowing how to be kelp. They never know any other way to exist. So let me put this all together. You have an animal that grew dozens of useless body parts to break its own silhouette, that decided not to swim like other fish, that carries its young exposed on the outside of the male's body, that gives birth to babies who are born already pretending to be plants. An animal that, in every measurable way, walked away from the standard fish playbook and built its life around being something that is not quite an animal anymore. The leafy sea dragon is, biologically, a vertebrate. It has a spine. It has fins. It has eyes. It is, by definition, a fish, but it has decided not to act like one. And the strange truth is, the more it commits to not being a fish, the better it does at staying alive. The leafy sea dragon is the fifth glitch on our list, and it might be the gentlest. But do not let the gentleness fool you. This animal is one of the most precisely engineered survival systems I have ever read about. It just happens to look like a piece of kelp while it does it. There is an animal I want to introduce you to now, and I want to do it carefully, because the first time you see this animal, your reaction is going to be the same as mine was. Your reaction is going to be, what is wrong with it? Because the animal does not look right. The animal looks like a mistake. The animal looks like one of those AI-generated images that went wrong, where the model put the eyes in slightly the wrong place and the body in slightly the wrong shape, and the result is something that looks almost like a real fish, but not quite. Something is off. Something is broken. You cannot put your finger on what is broken, but you know, looking at it, that this is not what a fish is supposed to look like. Welcome to the frogfish. The animal I think evolution may have at some point simply given up on. I am being a little dramatic here, but only a little, because the frogfish is, in my honest opinion, the ugliest vertebrate in the ocean. And I do not say that to be mean. I say it because the ugliness is the point. The ugliness is the entire strategy. The frogfish is what happens when natural selection looks at a fish and says, forget elegance, forget streamlining, forget everything you think a fish should be. Just make it look so wrong that nothing on the reef can figure out what it is. Let me describe the body. The body is squat. The body is lumpy. The skin is covered in warts and irregular growths and flaps and tags of flesh that hang off the sides like the animal has some kind of skin disease. The coloration is mottled, smeared with browns and yellows and pinks and greens. None of it symmetrical, none of it consistent. The face is asymmetrical. The mouth is too big for the head. The eyes bulge out in different directions, not coordinated with each other. The pectoral fins, which on any normal fish would be sleek and flat for steering, are instead bent at angles that look almost like little hands. Bent wrists, propping the animal up on the seafloor. The frogfish does not swim, by the way. It walks. Yes, a fish that walks. It uses those bent pectoral fins to shuffle across the bottom of the reef like a small, deformed quadruped. It does not swim through the water like other fish. It crawls. Slowly. Awkwardly. The way a creature that should not be able to move at all might move if you forced it to. By every measurement of what a fish is supposed to be, the frogfish is wrong. Wrong shape. Wrong skin. Wrong locomotion. Wrong proportions. It looks like a creature that was sculpted in a hurry, with bad reference material, and then released into the ocean without a final quality check. And here is the part of the glitch that I want you to sit with. This animal, this lumpy, asymmetrical, wart-covered walking failure of a fish, is one of the most successful ambush predators in the entire ocean. The ugliness is not a flaw. The ugliness is the weapon. Let me explain. Most predators on a coral reef rely on visual recognition to identify prey. Their brains have been calibrated over millions of years to detect specific shapes. The streamlined silhouette of a fish, the smooth body, the symmetry, the patterns. When a predator scans the reef, it is, in effect, running a pattern recognition algorithm. Find a fish shape. Strike at the fish shape. Ignore anything that is not a fish shape. The frogfish is not a fish shape. The frogfish is a lump. The frogfish, sitting on the seafloor with its warty skin and its bent wrist fins and its irregular outline, does not register in the predator's brain as something to eat. The predator looks directly at the frogfish and sees a sponge, or a piece of coral, or a clump of algae, or just background noise. The frogfish has, by being so visually wrong, made itself invisible. Now this would be impressive enough on its own, an animal that survives by being too ugly to recognize. But here is where the glitch deepens, because the frogfish is not just hiding. The frogfish is also hunting, from the same lumpy, motionless position, without ever moving. There is a small, fleshy appendage that grows from the top of the frogfish's head, just above the eyes. It is a modified spine, repurposed by biology into a fishing rod. Yes, a literal fishing rod, mounted on the head of a fish. At the tip of that rod is a small lure called the esker, and the esker, depending on the species, is shaped to mimic a worm or a small shrimp or a tiny fish. The frogfish wiggles the lure in slow, deliberate motions, dangling it in front of the camouflaged hump of its own body. A small fish swims up to investigate the lure. The fish does not see the frogfish. The fish sees a worm. The fish gets close. The fish commits to the bite. And then in 6/1000ths of a second, the fish is gone. The The frogfish's mouth opens at speeds that are almost impossible to film. The mouth expands by a factor of 12 in volume, almost instantaneously, creating a vacuum that pulls in water and prey at the same time. The fish is inhaled. The mouth closes. The frogfish goes back to looking like a lump. The entire predation event is over before the surrounding reef registers that it happened. From the outside, it looks like a fish swam up to a piece of sponge and then disappeared. Tell me in the comments, when you watch footage of this happening, what is your honest reaction? Because mine was disbelief. I had to rewind it. Multiple times. The animal that looks like it should not be able to move at all has one of the fastest strike mechanisms in the entire ocean. So let me put this glitch together for you. You have an animal that looks like a biological mistake, that cannot swim, that walks on bent fins, that has warts and tags and asymmetric features that look almost like skin disease, that should, by every visual standard, be the worst designed fish in the ocean. And yet, this animal is invisible to its prey, invisible to its predators. It does not need to chase. It does not need to flee. It sits on the reef floor, looking wrong, looking ugly, looking like nothing worth investigating. And it waits for prey to swim up to it. Then it eats them faster than the human eye can register. The frogfish is not a glitch. Or actually, the frogfish is a glitch. But it is a glitch that works better than the polished, beautiful, properly designed fish around it. Sometimes evolution selects for elegance. Sometimes evolution selects for speed. And sometimes, occasionally, evolution selects for something else entirely. Evolution looks at the problem and says, what if we just make it so wrong, so visually broken, so far from what anything expects a fish to look like, that no other animal on the reef can even classify it correctly? That is the frogfish. That is the strategy. And as much as it offends my sense of how a fish is supposed to look, I have to admit something. It works. It works incredibly well. Evolution did not forget to finish this animal. Evolution finished it exactly the way it intended. We just do not have the eye for it. The frogfish is the 6th glitch on our list. I will see you in Chapter 7. I want to talk to you about the most ridiculous animal in this video. I have been thinking about how to introduce this one for a while, because there is no way to do it without sounding mean. So, I'm just going to come out and say it. The sea cucumber is, in my opinion, the funniest animal in the entire ocean. Not because it does anything intentionally funny. The sea cucumber is funny because the sea cucumber should not be alive. Look at it. Just look at it. The sea cucumber is a tube. It is a leathery, lumpy, slow-moving tube. It has no eyes. It has no face. It has no teeth. It has no claws. It has no shell. It has no fins. It has no obvious front or back. If you found one washed up on a beach without context, you might genuinely confuse it for a piece of trash, a discarded glove, a lump of seaweed. And the sea cucumber is slow. I want you to understand how slow. Most ocean animals, when they move, you can see them moving. The sea cucumber moves on a timescale you have to wait for. You can sit and watch a sea cucumber for several minutes and not be sure if it has moved at all. It crawls across the seafloor at a pace that makes a tortoise look like a sprinter. There are sand particles that travel faster than this animal during a strong current. So we have here a soft, slow, blind, faceless, defenseless tube sitting on the open seafloor in an ocean full of fast-moving predators with teeth. By every rule of evolution, by every textbook principle of how prey animals are supposed to survive, the sea cucumber should not exist. It should have been eaten out of the gene pool in the very first generation. It is, on paper, the worst designed animal on this list. And yet, the sea cucumber is everywhere. There are over 1,000 species of them. They have been on this planet for over 500 million years. They are, by every measure of evolutionary success, thriving. So the question becomes the question I have been asking in every chapter of this video. How is this possible? What is this animal hiding underneath that leathery, ridiculous exterior? The answer, as I'm about to show you, is one of the most absurd emergency response systems in the entire animal kingdom. The sea cucumber has, in lieu of any of the normal defenses, equipped itself with a series of survival tricks that are so unhinged that the first time I read about them, I genuinely could not tell if the research was real or a joke someone had made up. Let me walk you through them, in order, from mild to insane. Trick number 1. Chemistry. The sea cucumber's body is loaded with toxic compounds called saponins. These are spread throughout the tissues, embedded in the skin, woven into the body wall. A predator that bites a sea cucumber gets an unpleasant chemical experience. Bad taste. Cellular irritation. The kind of feedback that, over enough encounters, teaches that predator never to bite a tube again. This is fine. This is normal. Lots of soft animals use chemistry for defense. So far, we are still inside the realm of standard biology. Trick number 2. When a predator presses harder, when chemistry is not enough, the sea cucumber escalates. And the escalation is where this animal stops making sense. The sea cucumber, when sufficiently threatened, ejects sticky threads from its rear end. I'm going to let that sentence sit for a moment. These threads are called Cuvierian tubules. They are stored, coiled, inside the body of the sea cucumber, waiting. When the moment comes, the animal contracts violently and shoots them out of its anus. As soon as the threads hit seawater, they expand. They become elastic, sticky, almost like a wet glue. They get tangled in whatever is attacking, jamming up the predator's mouth, gills, eyes, body. The predator is suddenly fighting a mess of adhesive spaghetti that came out of an animal that 3 seconds ago looked like it had no defenses at all. Tell me, in the comments, when you read about this, what is your honest reaction? Because mine was disbelief mixed with laughter. The sea cucumber shoots sticky string out of its butt to confuse predators. This is, scientifically, accurate. This is a real animal that does this. But we are still not done, because trick number 2 is not the most extreme thing this animal does. Trick number 3. If even the sticky threads do not work, if the predator is committed, if the situation is truly desperate, the sea cucumber will eject its own internal organs through its body wall. You heard me right. The sea cucumber will tear open its own body and expel its intestines and other internal structures into the water as a final distraction. The predator, presented with a sudden cloud of nutrient-rich organs, often goes for the easy meal of the floating viscera. While the predator is busy eating the organs, the now hollow sea cucumber, still alive, slowly crawls away. I want you to picture this. The animal becomes a decoy by sacrificing its own insides. It pays the cost of major surgery, on itself, by itself, mid-attack, just to escape. And then, the part of this that makes me think evolution was actively trolling us when it designed this animal. The sea cucumber regrows the organs. All of them. The intestines, the respiratory tree, the reproductive tissues. Over the course of a few weeks, the body rebuilds everything that was thrown out. The animal goes back to normal, like the entire event never happened. So the strategy is, be slow, be soft, be blind, be ugly, carry no obvious defenses. And then, if attacked, deploy sticky spaghetti from your rear. And if that fails, throw your own organs at the problem, and then grow new organs. This is the survival plan. And it works. It has worked for 500 million years. There is one more detail I have to mention because it adds the final layer to the absurdity of this animal. The sea cucumber, despite being a punchline of a creature, is one of the most ecologically important animals on the entire seafloor. Sea cucumbers eat sand. They process sediment. They filter through the seafloor, extracting organic matter, oxygenating the substrate, and excreting cleaned sand back out. They are, in effect, the janitors of the ocean floor. The reefs they live on depend on them. Without sea cucumbers, the seabed becomes anoxic. Bacteria run wild. The whole bottom of the ecosystem starts to collapse. So the silliest-looking animal on this list is also one of the most important ones. The leathery tube that shoots its own organs at predators is also the janitor that keeps the ocean floor functioning. So tell me, after everything I just told you, is the sea cucumber a glitch? Or is the sea cucumber in some way smarter than all of us? because this animal looks like a joke and survives like a god. The sea cucumber is the 7th glitch on our list. I am still laughing. We are going to slow down again for this chapter because I want you to fully appreciate what you're about to look at. Humans as a species are very proud of our screens. We invented the television. We invented the computer monitor. We invented the smartphone display. We invented the LED panel, the OLED panel, the high refresh rate gaming monitor with millions of individually addressable pixels. We treat all of this as the pinnacle of human technological achievement. The ability to render moving images in full color in real time on a thin, flat surface is something we consider so impressive that entire industries are built around it. And then there is the cuttlefish, which has been doing all of this with its skin, biologically, for the last few 100 million years. I am not exaggerating. I am not stretching a metaphor. The cuttlefish, in the most literal sense, is a living screen. The cuttlefish has, inside its body, a high-resolution display system that operates with neural immediacy, that can render patterns and textures and even moving images across its body in real time, controlled by its brain, with a level of precision that, in some ways, our best monitors are still trying to match. The cuttlefish is the glitch of biology that figured out display technology hundreds of millions of years before we even had the concept. Let me walk you through how this works, because the mechanics of it are, in my opinion, one of the most underrated marvels in the entire animal kingdom. The skin of a cuttlefish contains layers of specialized cells stacked on top of each other, each layer doing a different job. The top layer is made of chromatophores. These are tiny sacs of pigment, and each one is wrapped in a ring of muscle fibers. When the muscle contracts, the sac stretches open and the color becomes visible. When the muscle relaxes, the sac shrinks back and the color disappears. There are millions of these cells across the surface of a cuttlefish's body, and every single one is wired directly to the nervous system. The brain can open and close each cell individually, in milliseconds. So already just at the top layer, you have a system of millions of independently addressable pixels, each capable of being switched on or off by direct neural command, all of them updating at the speed of nervous system signals. That is, by definition, a display. That is a high-resolution display made out of living tissue. But it gets stranger. Underneath the chromatophores are cells called iridophores and leucophores. These are not pigment cells. These are reflective cells. They bounce light back at specific angles, producing structural color. Iridophores create iridescent blues and greens by playing with the wavelength of light directly. Leucophores reflect ambient light, allowing the cuttlefish to match the brightness of its surroundings without producing any pigment at all. Together, these reflective layers add depth and shimmer to whatever pattern the chromatophores are displaying on top of them. And then, on top of all of that, there is one more layer: the papillae. These are little muscular projections in the skin that can raise and lower on command. When the cuttlefish wants to look smooth, the papillae lie flat. When the cuttlefish wants to look like rough coral, the papillae stand up, creating actual three-dimensional texture across the body. The skin does not just change color. The skin changes its own surface geometry. So now I want you to add it all up. You have a display screen with millions of independently controlled color pixels. Underneath it, a reflective layer that produces iridescence and brightness matching. On top of it, a texture layer that can change the actual physical surface of the skin in real time. All of it controlled directly by the nervous system. All of it updating in milliseconds. That is not a fish. That is a piece of technology wearing a fish costume. And here is where I want to plant something in your head, because this is the part that broke my brain when I researched this chapter. The cuttlefish is colorblind. Read that again. The cuttlefish, by every measurement we can make of its eyes, has only one type of photoreceptor in its retina. It can detect light. It can detect brightness. It can detect contrast and polarization. But it cannot, as far as we can tell, see color the way you and I see color. So the animal that produces the most sophisticated color displays on this planet cannot personally perceive the colors it is producing. Tell me in the comments how this is possible. Because I have read multiple papers on this, and I am still not sure I fully understand it. The cuttlefish somehow knows what color to match its environment to, knows what color pattern to display to other cuttlefish, knows how to camouflage against a colored coral or a colored piece of algae, all without being able to see the colors involved. The current theory is that the cuttlefish uses contrast and polarization to infer color information indirectly, but even that theory does not fully explain how the system works as well as it does. It is, biologically, one of the strangest paradoxes I have encountered in any animal. The artist cannot see the painting it is painting. Now I want to tell you about the dual channel trick, because this is where the technology of the cuttlefish goes from impressive into actually unbelievable. A male cuttlefish, when courting a female while a rival male is nearby, can run two completely different displays on his body at the same time. On the side facing the female, he shows the courtship pattern. On the side facing the rival male, he shows female coloration, making himself look harmless to the competitor. Two patterns, one body, at the same moment, with perfect coordination between left and right. Try to do this with a television. Try to make a screen display two different images on two different halves while keeping the dividing line invisible. Even with our best technology, that is hard. The cuttlefish does it with skin, powered by its nervous system, without any external electronics. I want to close this chapter with the question I keep coming back to. Because the cuttlefish in some ways summarizes the entire premise of this video. When you look at this animal, what you see is something that looks like an alien technology that found its way into a living body. The skin is a display. The brain is a graphics processor. The behavior is a programming language. The whole organism is, in a functional sense, a real-time visual computer made out of soft tissue. Evolution did not produce this in a laboratory. Evolution did not have engineers or designers or research teams. Evolution stumbled into the cuttlefish through millions of years of small mutations, and the result is a creature that, somehow, ended up with capabilities that we, with all our science and all our engineering, cannot fully replicate. This is not just a glitch. This is the glitch that, in some ways, makes me question what biology even is. The cuttlefish is the 8th glitch on our list. Wait until you see what comes next. I want you to imagine I gave you a small task. I want you to design, from scratch, the most efficient predator you possibly can. You have access to all the materials biology offers: muscle, bone, nerve, brain, sensory organs, anything you want. The animal you design has to live in the ocean, hunt successfully, and survive in a world full of larger and faster creatures. You would probably start by adding things: a brain so it can think, a heart so it can pump blood, a nervous system so it can coordinate, eyes, ears, muscles, skeleton or shell for structure, maybe teeth or claws for the actual killing. The more sophisticated the predator, the more parts it needs. That is how biology works. Better animals are made of more components. Now I want to show you an animal that did the exact opposite. An animal that, instead of adding parts to become a better predator, removed parts. Removed almost everything, in fact. Until what was left was something that, by every reasonable measurement, should not be capable of being an animal at all. This is the box jellyfish. And the box jellyfish is, in my opinion, the strangest entry on this entire list, because everything else in this video is a glitch in how a body works. The box jellyfish is a glitch in what a body even is. Let me list what this animal does not have. It has no brain, no central brain, no primitive brain, no version of a brain at all. There is no organ in the box jellyfish that you could point to and say, that is where thinking happens. It has no heart. There is no organ pumping fluid through circulation. There is no circulation in the way we understand it. It has no bones, no skeleton, no shell, no structural support. The body is held together by nothing more than the surface tension of its own gelatinous tissue. It has no muscles in the traditional sense. There are contractile fibers, yes, but no organized muscular system the way you and I have. It has no blood. No liver, no lungs, no stomach you would recognize, no nervous system the way most animals understand the term. The box jellyfish is, by mass, around 95% water. The remaining 5% is a thin scaffolding of tissue, just enough material to hold the shape together. If you took a box jellyfish out of the water and laid it on a flat surface, within hours it would essentially disappear, evaporate, collapse into nothing. There would be almost no remains. This is, by any reasonable engineering definition, the absolute minimum amount of biology that you can call an animal. There is almost nothing here, and yet, the box jellyfish has, inside its almost empty body, enough venom to kill 60 adult humans from a single specimen. The box jellyfish can navigate complex environments, swim with purpose, hunt actively, and respond to its surroundings with what looks like real-time decision-making. The box jellyfish is one of the most lethal predators on this planet, and it operates entirely without the equipment that we, biologically, consider necessary to be lethal. How is this possible? How does an almost empty bag of jelly kill better than animals with full nervous systems and dedicated weapons? This is the glitch, and I have been thinking about it for weeks. Let me show you what the box jellyfish does have. It has eyes. This is the part that, when I first read about it, made me stop and reread the paragraph multiple times. The box jellyfish has 24 eyes. 24, arranged in 4 clusters around its body. And these are not light-sensitive patches. These are real eyes. Some of them have corneas. Some of them have lenses. Some of them have retinas. These eyes form actual images. So the animal with no brain has 24 image-forming eyes. I want you to sit with that for a moment, because the implications break standard biology. Eyes are useless without something to process the images they produce. Eyes feed visual information into a brain, where the brain interprets the information and makes decisions. That is how vision works in every other animal we know about. If you have eyes but no brain, what is doing the interpretation? Where is the visual information going? What is making the decisions about where to swim and what to avoid? We do not know. That is the honest answer. Scientists have been studying box jellyfish for decades, and we still do not fully understand how an animal with no central brain can use vision to navigate. There is something happening in the nerve net, the distributed network of neural tissue running through the body, that allows visual information to translate into behavior. But the mechanism is not fully understood. We do not know how the box jellyfish thinks. We are not even sure if thinking is the right word for what it does. Now I want to tell you about the weapon, because the weapon is the second half of this glitch. The tentacles of a box jellyfish are coated in microscopic capsules called nematocysts. Each one is a tiny pressurized container, coiled inside with a barbed tubule and loaded with venom. When something touches the tentacle, the capsule fires. The tubule shoots out at speeds that are among the fastest motions in the animal kingdom. The barb penetrates the victim. The venom is injected. All of this happens in microseconds, and there are millions of these capsules across the surface of the tentacles, all of them firing simultaneously on contact. The venom is not one toxin. It is a cocktail. It attacks red blood cells. It attacks the nervous system. It attacks the heart, all at the same time. In severe envenomations, a human can die in as little as 2 minutes. The animal that has no brain and almost no body has somehow evolved one of the most chemically sophisticated weapons systems on the planet. Tell me in the comments how this is possible, because every time I think about it, I land in the same place. How does almost nothing produce something this lethal? How does an animal that is 95% water deliver a more efficient kill than animals with full skeletons and central nervous systems and dedicated predator anatomy? The box jellyfish is not a more complex version of biology. The box jellyfish is biology with most of the components removed, and it still works. It works terrifyingly well. So the question I want to leave you with, before we move on, is the question this whole video keeps circling back to. We assume that complexity equals capability. We assume that more parts make a better animal. The box jellyfish is the counterexample. The box jellyfish is what happens when biology proves that you do not need a brain, a heart, bones, blood, or muscles to be one of the deadliest predators in the ocean. It just needs to touch you. The box jellyfish is the 9th glitch on our list. I do not have a good explanation for this one. I am not sure anyone does. I want to tell you about an instinct. Every animal on the reef, from the smallest juvenile fish to the largest crustacean, is born with one specific survival instinct that is hardwired into its nervous system from the moment of birth. The instinct is simple. When you are in danger, get small, get tight, find a hole, find a crack, find a space too narrow for the predator chasing you to follow. If you can fit, you are safe. If the predator cannot fit, the predator cannot reach you. This instinct has been refined over hundreds of millions of years of evolution. It is the foundation of how survival works on a coral reef. The entire architecture of a reef, with all its cracks and crevices and tunnels and overhangs, exists in part because the reef is built around this instinct. The reef is, in many ways, a giant network of hiding places. The hiding places are why so many small animals can exist surrounded by so many larger predators. Without hiding places, the food web collapses. So this instinct, this run-for-the-crevice instinct, is one of the most reliable rules of reef survival. Every prey animal knows it. Every prey animal follows it. Every prey animal trusts it. And the Moray eel is the animal that exists to break this trust. The Moray eel is, in my opinion, one of the most psychologically disturbing predators in the entire ocean. Not because of how it looks, not because of what it does in the moment, but because of what it represents. The Moray eel is the animal that figured out a very specific glitch in reef survival logic. The crevices that prey animals are running toward, the cracks in the coral that every small fish is genetically programmed to flee into, are not empty. Some of them are occupied, and the Moray eel is what occupies them. Let me describe this animal, because the body itself is the first piece of the glitch. A Moray eel does not look like a fish. The body is long, snake-like, elongated. It has no pectoral fins in the way most fish have pectoral fins. It has no body shape that would let it swim gracefully through open water. By every standard of fish design, the Moray eel is poorly built. If you saw a Moray eel trying to swim in open ocean, you would think it was injured. The motion is awkward. The body undulates in slow waves. It is one of the most inefficient swimming forms you can imagine. But here is the thing. The Moray eel is not built for open water. The Moray eel is built for the inside of holes. Take that same elongated body, that same snake-like shape, and stick it inside a crack in a coral reef, and suddenly the design makes perfect sense. The Moray eel can thread itself into spaces that no other predator of its size can enter. It pours itself through tunnels. It coils inside cavities that look, from the outside, far too small to contain an animal of its length. The body that fails in open water succeeds inside the geometry of the reef. So now you have a predator that lives full-time inside the very hiding places that prey animals are running toward. Tell me in the comments when you first realized this. Because for me, this fact alone changed the way I look at reefs. Every crack you see in the coral, every dark hole, every shadowed crevice that looks like a perfect little sanctuary. Some of them, statistically, have a Moray eel inside. The hiding places are not all empty. The hiding places have been claimed. Now let me tell you about what happens when a small fish, fleeing from a barracuda or a grouper or some other open water predator, makes the desperate dash for one of those crevices. The fish does what evolution taught it to do. It runs for shadow. It runs for the smallest, tightest, most enclosed space it can find. It darts into the crack. And in the moment its body enters the darkness, the Moray eel is already there, already aware, already waiting. The Moray eel does not need to chase. The Moray eel did not pursue the prey to this spot. The prey came to the Moray eel by following the instinct that should have saved it. The Moray eel exploits the survival behavior itself. The reef's safety system has been turned, by this animal, into a delivery system. And there is more. Because once the prey enters the crevice and encounters the Moray eel, the Moray eel has another glitch in its anatomy that ensures the prey does not escape. The Moray eel has 2 sets of jaws. I want you to read that sentence again. 2 sets of jaws. The first set is the normal one. The mouth at the front of the head. Teeth that grip. That part is standard. But then, inside the throat, the Moray eel has a second mobile set of jaws called pharyngeal jaws. And these inner jaws are not stationary. They can project forward into the mouth, like an organic claw extending out of the throat. When the Moray eel bites a fish with its outer jaws, the inner jaws shoot forward, grab the fish, and pull it backward down the throat in one continuous motion. This is the only animal on Earth with this kind of feeding mechanism. The only one. Researchers compared it, when they first documented it on film, to the alien from the science fiction movies. 2 mouths, working together, inside an animal that lives in dark holes. Now I want you to understand why this matters. Most predators have a problem when they catch prey in a tight space. The space is too narrow for them to maneuver. They cannot reposition the prey in their mouth. They cannot swallow effectively. The geometry of the hole defeats them. The Moray eel solved this problem by moving the entire swallowing apparatus forward. The eel does not need space to swallow. The eel brings the swallowing motion to the prey internally, in a tunnel where no other predator could feed. So the Moray eel is, in every sense, designed for the inside of cracks. The body fits where others cannot. The hunting strategy is to wait, not chase. The feeding mechanism functions inside spaces too tight for normal predators to operate in. And the prey it eats are the same prey that are programmed, by evolution, to run directly into its mouth. There is one more detail that, for me, completes the unsettling picture. The Moray eel breathes by opening and closing its mouth, constantly, slowly, rhythmically. The big jaws full of curved teeth that you see on every nature documentary, the famous open mouth pose of the Moray eel, is not aggression. That is just how the animal breathes. It pumps water across its gills by opening and closing its jaws. So when you look at a Moray eel in a coral crevice, mouth open, teeth visible, you are not looking at a threat display. You are looking at an animal that is breathing. The open mouth is the default state. The teeth are always exposed. The trap is always set. The animal is never not ready. So tell me in the comments, after everything I just told you, will you look at coral cracks the same way ever again? Because I cannot. I see a hole in coral now, and I think something might live there. Something might be inside, breathing, waiting, with 2 sets of jaws. The Moray eel is the 10th glitch on our list, and it might be the one that, more than any other animal in this video, changes how you see the reef. I will see you in chapter 11. I want to take a second to talk about coral. Coral, in case you have not thought about it recently, is not a plant. Coral is an animal. A coral reef is made up of millions and millions of tiny animals called polyps, each one of them secreting a hard skeleton of calcium carbonate around its body. Over centuries, these skeletons accumulate. They build on top of each other. They form the giant structures we call reefs. The Great Barrier Reef, for example, has been under construction by these tiny animals for over 20 million years. 20 million years of slow, patient, layer-by-layer building. The result is a structure that is, by mass, mostly stone. Hard, calcified mineral rock. The kind of substance that, on land, you would associate with cliffs and mountains. It is one of the most durable building materials biology produces. You cannot chew through it. You cannot bite through it. It would break the teeth of almost any animal that tried. So what I want to introduce you to now is an animal that does exactly that. An animal that swims up to a coral reef, an animal that opens its mouth, and an animal that bites directly into the stone, like a person taking a bite out of an apple. This is the parrotfish. And in my opinion, the parrotfish is the strangest entry on this entire list. Because everything else in this video is an animal that bends the rules of biology. The parrotfish is an animal that bends the rules of geology. Let me explain. The mouth of a parrotfish is not really a mouth in the way we normally think of one. The teeth are not separate, like our teeth, or like the teeth of most other fish. The teeth of a parrotfish are fused together into a solid, beak-like structure. The whole front of the mouth has been welded into one continuous biting plate, hard enough and sharp enough to scrape and shear actual coral skeleton. The animal looks, weirdly, more like a bird than a fish from the neck up. Two parrotfish jaws coming together on a piece of coral sound exactly like what they are, stone being chipped away. But the front beak is only the first part of the system, because biting the coral is the easy part. The hard part is what happens after. Behind the throat, the parrotfish has another set of teeth. These are called pharyngeal teeth, and they are organized into what is essentially a second jaw inside the throat, a grinding mill. Once the parrotfish bites off a chunk of coral, the chunk gets passed back to the pharyngeal mill, and the mill goes to work. The coral is ground down, pulverized, reduced to fine particles that the digestive system can process. Think about what this means. The parrotfish has, inside its body, an organic stone grinder, the same kind of machinery you would find in an industrial gravel processing facility, built out of bone and muscle, powered by the fish's own metabolism, running for the entire life of the animal. The parrotfish is, in a real engineering sense, a tiny living stone mill. Now I want to address the obvious question. Why would any animal evolve to eat rock? Rock is not food. Rock has no calories. Rock cannot be digested for energy. So why has biology produced an animal whose entire feeding apparatus is dedicated to processing calcium carbonate? The answer is the algae. Coral, despite being made mostly of stone, hosts a thin film of algae and microorganisms on its surface, and inside the coral skeleton itself, there are microscopic algae living embedded in the structure. These algae are nutritious. They are what the parrotfish actually eats. But to get to them, the parrotfish has to consume the rock that contains them. The coral skeleton is the wrapper. The algae are the food inside. And the parrotfish, in order to access the food, eats the wrapper too. So this is not an animal that has decided to eat stone for the sake of eating stone. This is an animal whose food source happens to be embedded in rock, and whose evolutionary response was to develop the machinery to process the rock right along with the food. Tell me in the comments, when you read something like this, what do you make of it? Because to me, this is one of the most extreme examples in nature of an animal adapting to a difficult food source. Most herbivores eat leaves. Some eat grass. A few eat bark. The parrotfish eats coral. The parrotfish eats the building. And here is the part that ties this whole glitch together. The coral that gets ground up in the pharyngeal mill does not provide nutrition. The fish cannot digest calcium carbonate. So after the algae are extracted, the leftover coral powder has to go somewhere. And where it goes is straight through the digestive tract, out the other end, as fine white sand. A single large parrotfish can produce hundreds of pounds of sand per year. Multiply that by every parrotfish on every coral reef on Earth, and you get a real geological force. The white sand beaches of the tropics, the ones in postcards, the ones tourists fly across the world to lie on, are largely composed of parrotfish waste. Coral that was eaten, ground up, and excreted. The beach is the byproduct of an animal that bites the reef for a living. So tell me, after everything I just told you, what is the parrotfish to you? A grazer, a vandal, a digester of stone, or something stranger? An animal whose entire body, from its fused beak to its grinding throat mill to its digestive tract, has been built around solving the problem of how to eat a building. I look at this animal, and I cannot decide if it is the strangest thing on this list, or one of the most quietly impressive. Maybe both. The parrotfish is the 11th glitch on our list. I will see you in Chapter 12. I want to tell you about an animal that, in my opinion, should not be able to do what it does. Not because of its weapons, not because of its size, Not because of its intelligence, but because of where it lives, or more accurately, because of where it goes. Every single day, multiple times a day, for its entire life, this animal is the sperm whale. And the sperm whale is, in the simplest possible terms, in the wrong place. Biologically, evolutionarily, anatomically. The sperm whale lives in an environment that its body is not built for. And the more you understand the contradiction at the heart of this animal, the stranger it gets. Let me explain. Sperm whales are mammals, just like you and me. They have lungs, they have hair, they have warm blood. They give birth to live young and nurse them with milk. They are biologically much closer to us than they are to the fish swimming around them. The sperm whale's ancestors millions of years ago were land animals. Four-legged mammals walking around on the surface of the earth, breathing air, just like every other land mammal. At some point in evolutionary history, those ancestors decided to go back into the water. They abandoned the land. They reshaped their bodies into something that could swim. Over many generations, the legs became flippers, the tail became a fluke, the body became streamlined for aquatic life. Eventually, the descendants of those land mammals were fully aquatic. They became what we call whales. So far, this is a strange enough story on its own. A land animal returning to the sea like rewinding evolution. But the sperm whale did not stop there. The sperm whale, an animal whose lineage spent hundreds of millions of years adapting to land, and then went back to the water, then decided to go deeper, much deeper. Sperm whales routinely dive to depths of 2,000 meters. That is more than a mile straight down, into water so dark that no sunlight reaches it, so cold that surface water would feel tropical by comparison, and so pressurized that the weight of water pressing against the body equals more than 200 times atmospheric pressure at the surface. I want you to sit with that number for a second. 200 times the pressure of the air you are breathing right now. That is enough to collapse the lungs of any normal mammal, enough to crush most submarines, enough to make the dissolved nitrogen in mammalian blood form bubbles that would cause fatal embolisms during ascent. It is, by every reasonable measure, a fatal environment for an air-breathing animal, and the sperm whale somehow goes there voluntarily to hunt, and then comes back, and then does it again, several times a day, for up to 70 years of its life. Tell me in the comments how this animal exists, because every time I think about it, I land in the same place. This should not be possible. A warm-blooded, lung-breathing mammal should not be able to function at depths that would kill almost every other warm-blooded animal on this planet. The sperm whale is, biologically, an air breather. The sperm whale lives a meaningful part of its life in an environment where there is no air at all. Let me walk you through some of the things the sperm whale's body has to do to survive these dives. The lungs do not stay inflated at depth. They cannot. The pressure would damage them. Instead, the lungs collapse. They flatten down to almost nothing as the whale descends, with the air being squeezed out into other parts of the respiratory system that can handle the compression. The whale is not breathing during the dive. The whale is, in a sense, holding its breath for the entire descent, the entire hunt, and the entire ascent, up to 90 minutes at a time. The oxygen the whale needs is not stored in the lungs. The oxygen is stored in the muscles and in the blood. Sperm whale muscle tissue contains extremely high concentrations of myoglobin, an oxygen-binding protein. The concentration is so high that, in some species, the muscle tissue is nearly black with it. The whale's body is essentially a giant oxygen battery. It carries its breathable atmosphere inside itself, chemically bound to its own tissues. During the dive, the heart rate slows dramatically. Blood flow to non-essential organs gets restricted. The animal goes into a metabolic state that conserves every available molecule of oxygen for the brain and the critical muscles. The whale is, in many ways, half shutting itself down to survive the dive, and then there is the cold. The deep ocean is just above freezing. A warm-blooded mammal in that water would normally lose body heat at a catastrophic rate. The sperm whale has thick layers of blubber, specialized blood vessel arrangements that conserve heat, and a metabolism tuned to handle the thermal stress. But still, the animal is voluntarily entering temperatures that should kill it. Now, I want you to put all of this together. The sperm whale is an air-breathing animal. The sperm whale evolved from land mammals. The sperm whale has lungs designed for atmospheric pressure. The sperm whale needs warmth to function. And the sperm whale, knowing all of this about its own body, descends into water that has no air, no warmth, no light, and crushing pressure, day after day, for an entire lifetime. This is not a fish that figured out how to live in the deep. This is a mammal that decided, against every rule of mammalian biology, to colonize an environment that should be impossible for it. The sperm whale is the 12th glitch on our list, and it might be the most defiant entry of all, because it is not just an animal that broke one rule. It is an animal that broke the entire question of where its body belongs. I will see you in chapter 13. Let me explain why this next animal does not make sense. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember the basic rule of reef survival. The reef is a dangerous neighborhood. Every prey animal that lives on a reef is constantly trying to do one of two things: either escape detection or escape capture. The first option, escaping detection, is by far the more common one. Hide, blend, disappear, become the rock, become the kelp, become the sand. The more invisible you are, the longer you live. The pufferfish hides until it has to inflate. The seahorse turns itself into kelp. The frogfish becomes a sponge. The cuttlefish dissolves into the background using its skin display. Almost every prey animal you have ever seen on a reef is, in some way, dedicated to the project of being invisible. And then there is the sea slug, the nudibranch, the animal that somehow missed the memo. The animal that decided to do the opposite of everything every other prey animal does. The animal that has no defenses, no armor, no shell, no speed, and no teeth, and that instead of hiding from predators, advertises its presence to them. In neon, with colors so bright that you can spot them from 20 feet away through cloudy water. The sea slug is, by every measurement of standard prey biology, the worst designed animal on this list. And it might also be the most successful. Let me describe what we are actually looking at. A nudibranch is a soft-bodied mollusk. No shell. The shell, if there ever was one, has been lost over evolutionary time. The body is essentially a gelatinous lump of tissue that crawls slowly across coral or rock at speeds you would have to film and time-lapse to even notice. There is no armor protecting it. There are no defensive spines. There is no fast escape mechanism. If you wanted to design an animal that would be easy to eat, you would design the sea slug. But the colors are what make this animal not make sense. Sea slugs come in some of the most extreme color combinations you will ever see on this planet. Electric blue with neon orange edges, hot pink with yellow spots, purple with white stripes and bright red tips. Patterns so vivid that they look painted, almost cartoonish, like someone applied them on top of the animal with a brush. These are not the soft pastels of camouflaged reef life. These are the kind of colors that scream from across the water column. The kind of colors that, on any other prey animal, would be a death sentence. So what is going on? How does the most defenseless animal in the reef survive by being the most visible? What is the missing piece? The missing piece is chemistry. And this is where the sea slug's glitch becomes one of the strangest survival strategies in the entire ocean. The sea slug has, over evolutionary time, decided not to compete on the same axis as every other prey animal. Most prey animals invest in being hard to find, hard to catch, or hard to eat in the mechanical sense. The sea slug invests in being hard to eat in the chemical sense. The sea slug's body is loaded with toxins, compounds that, when a predator bites the slug, deliver an immediate and memorable chemical experience. Bad taste, cellular irritation, in some species, actual neurological effects. And here is the part that pushes this animal into the truly weird category. The sea slug does not always make the toxins itself. In many species, the sea slug acquires the toxins from its prey. The sea slug, despite being slow and defenseless, is a predator. It crawls across the reef eating things, and the things it eats are not random. The sea slug specifically targets some of the most chemically defended animals in the ocean. Sponges that produce toxic compounds, hydroids and anemones that carry stinging nematocysts, algae with secondary metabolites. The sea slug consumes these armed animals, and instead of digesting and breaking down their defenses, it sorts them. The toxins get rerouted, intact, into specialized storage tissues in the slug's own body. The stinging cells in some species get transported, still loaded and operational, up to the tips of fleshy appendages on the slug's back, where they wait, ready to fire. The slug, in other words, is stealing weapons from other animals and mounting them on itself as defense. Tell me in the comments, when you read about this, what do you make of it? Because this is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated facts in marine biology. An animal that eats armed prey and somehow uses the prey's own weapons as its own armor. This has a name. It is called kleptocnidy, from the Greek root for theft. The sea slug is, literally, a weapons thief. So now we can understand why the colors work. The sea slug is loaded with stolen and synthesized toxins. A predator that bites a sea slug gets a mouthful of chemistry, foul taste, possible stinging cells embedded in the mouth, possible neurological effects. The predator spits out the slug. The predator remembers the experience. And here is the critical part. The predator remembers the colors. The next time the predator sees those same colors, anywhere on the reef, it does not bite. The brain has tagged that color combination as bad outcome. The slug, by being incredibly visible, has trained the predator to leave it alone forever. The visibility is not a flaw. The visibility is the message. The slug is, in effect, walking around the reef wearing a sign that says, "Do not touch." In biology, this is called aposematic coloration. Warning colors backed up by real danger. Bees on land do it. Poison dart frogs do it. The sea slug does it underwater, with a level of artistic excess that, frankly, makes most warning colors look conservative by comparison. There is one more thing I have to mention before we close this chapter. Some species of sea slug have taken the chemical theft strategy even further. Some species, called sacoglossans, eat algae, and instead of just digesting them, they keep the chloroplasts alive inside their own bodies. The chloroplasts are the cellular machinery that performs photosynthesis. So these slugs, after eating algae, become part plant. They can sit in sunlight and generate their own energy directly from solar power, for weeks at a time. This is called kleptoplasty, stolen photosynthesis. The same animal that steals weapons from other animals also steals the ability to do photosynthesis from plants. The sea slug, this slow, soft, defenseless animal, has built itself into a composite creature. It is a thief of chemistry, a thief of weapons, and a thief of sunlight conversion. The sea slug is, in many ways, a collage of things it has taken from other organisms. So let me ask you something. After everything I just told you, when you look at this animal, what do you see? A defenseless prey animal that somehow survives by being too unpleasant to eat. A genius of chemistry. A criminal that has spent millions of years stealing pieces of biology from other animals and adding them to itself. Or do you see what I see? An animal that should not exist by the standard rules of prey survival, but does, because it broke the rules and built its own playbook from scratch. An animal that decided, somewhere in evolutionary history, to stop trying to win the camouflage game and instead just become the worst possible thing for a predator to put in its mouth. The sea slug is the 13th glitch on our list. I will see you in chapter 14. I want to plant an idea in your head for this chapter. The seafloor, in most of the documentaries you have ever watched, is treated as background. The seafloor is just terrain. It is the canvas on which the action happens. Fish swim above it. Crabs scuttle across it. Things live on it. The seafloor itself is, in every depiction you have ever seen, inert, passive, furniture. The seafloor is the stage. The animals are the performers. I want you to throw that idea away for the next 10 minutes, because there is an animal I'm going to introduce you to now whose entire survival strategy is built on a single, deeply unsettling concept. The concept is this: the seafloor is not always furniture. Sometimes the seafloor is the animal, and the animals walking across it. The small fish drifting just above it. The crustaceans scuttling along its surface. Do not realize, until the moment they are inhaled, that the ground they were trusting was alive the entire time. This is the monkfish, And the monkfish, in my opinion, is one of the most psychologically disturbing animals on this entire list. Not because of what it looks like, although what it looks like is plenty disturbing, but because of where it lives and what it does to the very idea of safe ground. Let me describe this animal, because the body itself is the first piece of the puzzle. The monkfish does not look like a normal fish. The body is flat, pressed against the bottom, wide and shallow, like a slab of muscle that has been laid down on the sediment and forgotten there. The skin is mottled in browns and greys, textured to match mud and silt and gravel. From above, the monkfish does not look like a creature at all. It looks like a stain on the seafloor, a discoloration, a patch of darker sediment in a slightly different pattern, nothing that would attract attention. But the head is what makes this animal feel wrong. The head of a monkfish is enormous, disproportionate. It takes up most of the body, with a mouth that stretches almost the full width of the skull. The mouth is huge, so big that, when the animal is at rest, the lower jaw seems almost too heavy for the body. The teeth inside that mouth curve inward, recurved, designed to ensure that anything that enters cannot come back out. The eyes sit on top of the head, looking upward, watching the water column above. So picture this animal: a massive flat head with a massive mouth, attached to a smaller body, lying flat on the sea floor, mottled to match the sand, partially buried so that only the eyes and a small portion of the back are exposed. The monkfish has, effectively, disappeared into the ground. There is no silhouette to identify. There is no movement to track. There is nothing, just sediment, just bottom. Tell me in the comments, when you have looked at footage of monkfish, did you spot the animal before the narrator pointed it out? Because I almost never do, even when I know I am looking at one. Even when I am watching a video specifically about monkfish. The camouflage is that complete. The animal is, for all practical purposes, invisible until it moves. Now here is where the strategy goes from clever to actively horror movie. The monkfish does not just hide. The monkfish hunts, from the same hidden position, using a lure. There is a thin, modified spine that grows out of the front of the monkfish's head, just above the eyes. At the tip of this spine is a small, fleshy appendage called the esker. The esker looks, depending on the species, like a small worm or a wriggling piece of food. And the monkfish, while lying perfectly still and buried in sand, can wave this lure back and forth above its hidden mouth, subtly, suggestively, in a motion designed to look like prey. So now think about what is happening from the perspective of a small fish swimming above the seafloor. The small fish sees what appears to be empty sediment, just bottom, nothing interesting. And then, on the empty sediment, the small fish notices a tiny movement. A wriggling worm, or maybe a small injured creature, twitching against the sand. Easy food. The kind of thing the small fish has been programmed by evolution to investigate. The small fish swims down, approaches the lure, gets close, and then the ground opens. The monkfish's mouth flies open at speeds that are almost impossible to film. The lower jaw drops so fast that the inside of the mouth becomes a vacuum, and the surrounding water, along with the small fish and a cloud of sand, gets pulled inward in a single explosive moment. The mouth closes. The recurved teeth lock the prey in place. The sand settles. The seafloor goes still. The monkfish does not even need to chew. The fish is swallowed whole in one motion in less than a second. And then the most disturbing part of all, the monkfish does not move. The animal that just inhaled a fish goes back to looking like sediment. The ground that opened closes. The pattern on the seafloor returns to looking exactly like it did before. The trap resets. The next prey animal that swims by will see nothing, just sediment, just bottom. I want you to think about what this means. The monkfish has, in evolutionary terms, taken the ground itself and turned it into a weapon. The very surface that small reef animals depend on, the seafloor that they swim above and forage on and treat as the safest possible reference point in a dangerous water column, is, in certain spots, alive. Watching them, waiting for the right moment. There is no defense against this. The prey animal cannot see the predator. The prey animal cannot smell the predator in time. The prey animal cannot escape the suction once the strike begins. The only protection is to never get close to the wrong patch of ground. and in a wide-open seafloor with no obvious markers, that is, in practice, impossible. So tell me, when you see footage of small fish drifting over the bottom, of crustaceans walking across sand, of any animal trusting the seafloor as a passive backdrop, what do you think now? Because I cannot watch that footage the same way anymore. Every patch of sand looks suspicious to me now. Every dark stain on the bottom might be an eye. Every slightly uneven texture might be the back of an animal waiting. The monkfish is the 14th glitch on our list. The animal that broke the trust between prey and the ground itself. One more chapter to go, and the last one might be the strangest of them all. We have come to the last chapter of this video. 15 chapters, 15 animals, 15 entries on a list of biological glitches that, as far as I can tell, should not work. The pufferfish that solved the speed problem by becoming uneatable, the octopus that abandoned skeletons entirely, the seahorse that walked away from being a fish, the mantis shrimp that broke the rules of evolutionary trade-offs, the leafy sea dragon, the frogfish, the sea cucumber, the cuttlefish that became a screen, the box jellyfish that does everything important without having any of the parts, the Moray eel that hides in your hiding place, the parrotfish that eats the building, the sperm whale that lives in an environment its lungs are not built for, the sea slug that advertises, the monkfish that turns the ground itself into a weapon. Every one of those animals was strange. Every one of those animals was a contradiction in some way. And now, for the final chapter, I want to introduce you to an animal that is, in my opinion, the strangest contradiction of them all, not because of what it does, but because of how obvious the glitch is once you actually see it. This is the blue whale. And I want you to know, before we go any further, that I almost did not put the blue whale in this video. Because the blue whale on the surface does not seem strange. The blue whale is the animal everyone knows, the biggest animal on Earth. The biggest animal that has ever existed on this planet, as far as we can tell from the fossil record, larger than the largest dinosaurs, heart the size of a small car, tongue heavier than an elephant. A creature so massive that if you saw one swim by in the open ocean, you would not believe what you were looking at. That is not the glitch. The size is not the glitch. The glitch is what the blue whale eats. I want you to take a moment to consider this. The blue whale, the largest animal that has ever lived, the absolute peak of physical scale on this planet, the apex of biological size, does not eat large prey. The blue whale does not hunt big fish. The blue whale does not pursue squid. The blue whale does not, in any meaningful way, hunt the way you would expect the largest predator in the ocean to hunt. The blue whale eats krill, small shrimp-like crustaceans roughly the size of your fingernail, some species even smaller than that. The animal so enormous that its tongue alone weighs more than most cars survives entirely on creatures that you could hold 10 of in the palm of your hand. Tell me in the comments how this makes sense. Because the more I think about this, the more I keep coming back to the same thought. The largest animal in the history of life on Earth does not eat large things. The biggest body ever built by biology is sustained by some of the smallest organisms in the ocean. That is, by every rule of how food chains are supposed to work. Backwards. Let me explain why. In most ecosystems, there is a rule about energy and size. Animals at the top of a food chain are usually large, but they have to eat large prey to support their size. A lion needs zebras, not insects. A great white shark needs seals, not plankton. The size of a predator and the size of its prey are usually correlated, because larger animals need more calories, and you cannot get enough calories from tiny food sources to sustain a massive body. That is the rule. That is how the math is supposed to work. The blue whale broke the math. Or more accurately, the blue whale found a loophole in the math. The blue whale figured out, somewhere in its evolutionary history, that you can be the largest animal on Earth without hunting large prey, as long as you can eat enormous quantities of small prey at once. That word, enormous, is doing a lot of work in that sentence, because the way a blue whale feeds is one of the most extreme feeding events on this planet. The blue whale opens its mouth, lunges forward, and engulfs a volume of water larger than its own body. The throat expands, the lower jaw drops. The animal becomes, for a moment, a giant cavern of water filled with krill. Then the mouth closes. The water gets pushed out through the baleen plates that line the upper jaw, and the krill stay behind, trapped against the baleen, ready to be swallowed. A single lunge can capture thousands of krill. A single feeding bout in a productive area can involve dozens of these lunges. A single blue whale in a single day during peak feeding season can consume something on the order of 4 tons of krill, 4 tons of animals smaller than your fingernail, per day. Caught by an animal whose size, by every conventional rule, should require much larger prey. The blue whale, in other words, did not get big by becoming a better predator. The blue whale got big by becoming a better filter. The biggest animal on Earth is, mechanically, a giant sieve. And here is where the glitch reveals itself in full. The blue whale's massive body, the body that requires an enormous amount of energy to maintain, depends entirely on the abundance of one of the smallest animals in the ocean. The blue whale is, in every meaningful sense, tethered to the krill. If the krill disappear, the blue whale starves. The largest animal on this planet exists at the mercy of organisms so small that most of us have never seen one with our naked eyes. This is the contradiction. The biggest body, the smallest food. The top of the size pyramid, surviving on the bottom of the size pyramid. An animal whose entire existence is a single, elegant mathematical equation about energy efficiency, written in flesh, swimming through the oceans of the world. And it works. It has worked for millions of years. So as we close this video, I want you to think about what the blue whale represents. Because in many ways, the blue whale is the answer to every question this video has been asking. The pufferfish, the octopus, the sea slug, the box jellyfish, all of them broke some rule of biology. The blue whale broke the most fundamental rule of all, the rule of scale. The rule that says big predators eat big prey. The blue whale found a way to be the largest by going in the opposite direction, by eating the smallest things in the ocean. The blue whale is the 15th and final glitch on our list, and it might be the most elegant of them all. Thank you for staying with me through every chapter of this video. Tell me in the comments, which of these 15 animals surprised you the most? Which one made you stop and rethink something? Which one stayed with you? I will read every comment, and if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. There are more glitches in the ocean. We have only just scratched the surface. The ocean is the strangest place on this planet, and the more we learn about it, the stranger it gets. I will see you in the next one.